Recently, I started working with a new client who had an absolute disaster with their previous agency. The industry standard for digital marketing is that you'll give 30 days notice, the agency will be able to wrap things up, hand things back over, and wish you all the best for the future. That should be how it works for most. In this situation, my client was demanded to pay 90 days in order to break contract, even though it was from 4 or 5 years ago that they signed on. They were refused to be given access to their Google Ads, to their website, to their web hosting, and in the end, their website was taken offline without any warning by this agency. This is what we want to avoid at all costs. As business owners, your website is fundamental to your success online. And this is why I recommend that you never allow somebody else to control the keys to the kingdom, and that you as the business owner should have access to everything, should have full access to everything across the board. Hi, my name's Kyle. I'm the digital strategist at Social Geeks Digital. I've been working in the digital marketing industry for over 10 years now, and I've seen all types of cowboys in the wild, wild web. I'm sure in any industry, there's going to be people who are bad actors, but in the digital marketing world especially, it seems like it's pretty unregulated, and this is why I wanted to create a video to warn business owners to make sure that you know how to access all of your assets online, and to importantly make sure that you own. This is just one of many examples I could give you of agencies or people who've worked for a business starting to act in bad faith and either deleting things or removing access to them altogether. I had another client who recently purchased a business, and as part of that purchase, they were to be given access to the website and all their digital assets. Their Facebook page, they had thousands and thousands of followers on the Facebook page. It had been established for a good 7-8 years. And guess what? They didn't get this handed over, so they couldn't run Facebook ads. They couldn't post on their Facebook page. And this became a big issue. When it was pressed, one of the owners had a bad relationship with the other owner and didn't want to sell. So what did he do? He deleted the Facebook page. Thousands and thousands, years and thousands of followers, years and years of work, all down the drain because they didn't have keys to the kingdom and making sure that all owners had access to this asset. So the point of the story is you need to make sure that you have complete control over your assets. Now, I'm going to list off a few that I think are super important for every business owner to ensure that they have access to it and how to protect it so that when you're sharing access, you're not giving them the keys to the kingdom so that they can lock you out. The first thing that you need to control is your website and your website domain. Your domain is your website name. And this is used not just for your website, but also for your email services. So you should make sure that you are the owner of your domain. The reason for that is if you don't have access to your domain, and let's say you move agencies or you try to sell the business, that'll be the first thing that people ask for access for. You need this in order to, 1, launch a website, migrate a website, or set up any type of digital website service. And secondly, you need it for your email marketing. You need it just to set up email. If you want to have kyle@socialgeeks.io, you need to make sure that you own the domain and that it's pointing towards your email service. Your domain should be registered with a registrar like GoDaddy, Crazy Domains, or Cloudflare. And we generally recommend that the business owner is the one who has the logins for that account. You can use a free third-party tool to share access to your domain and allow people to update records on your behalf, but you maintain ownership. We are a huge advocate for using Cloudflare, cloudflare.com. I am a huge advocate for using Cloudflare to manage your DNS records. Are essentially pointing people when they send an email to kyle@socialgeeks.io or they type in socialgeeks.io into their browser. Your DNS records is how they are directed to the right website, to the right email service, so that you get the email and they get to your website. Cloudflare is a free third-party tool where you can essentially set up an account. You can have all of your DNS records there, and you can share that to developers, marketers, people in your team, so that they're able to update and change those records. If somebody, for whatever reason, was to maliciously control your Cloudflare account and kick you out, don't worry, you can always set up a new Cloudflare account and migrate your records over in a couple of minutes. It's really quick, really easy to use, and I've been using Cloudflare for over 10 years as a service. Fantastic service for business owners, website owners, really anyone across the board that's dealing with domain. So that's step number 1. You want to secure your domain and make sure that you have ownership of it, that you know that it's renewing every year, that you're getting the invoices, then you can go in there and make changes to it whenever you want. You should have keys to the kingdom, because if you give that away or you don't have access to that, you're basically giving somebody the ability to leverage you, whether it's going to be blackmail to pay outstanding invoices, regardless of why they might use those against you. You don't want to be in that position where you're having to beg somebody to get access back to your business. The clients that I gave you an example at the beginning of this episode, they had to go back to their previous agency and beg them to get their website back online. And as soon as they did, we migrated over to a new service. We made sure that that we had copied everything over and kick them out of all the accounts, because if you're going to do that is very unprofessional type of action. So you want to make sure that those types of people are removed as quickly as you possibly can from any access on your accounts. So your domain is number one. Number two is your website and email services. Oftentimes people don't even know where their website is stored or what it's set up on. That's totally fine if you're in this category, but there are easy ways to figure this out. There's tools called There's a tool that you can do that's free online called a Who Is Lookup, and you can see who has registered your domain and potentially where your website is hosted. It is a bit tricky to find your hosting, so you probably want to make sure that you are privy to where your website is stored. Your domain is like your address online. So if people type in your website domain, your DNS records point them towards your website. But your website needs to live somewhere, and that's where your website hosting comes in. A really good analogy for this I have on our website and a blog. But if you think of it like a physical store, your DNS records is if somebody says, hey, I'm trying to look for Social Geeks Digital, your domain name will give them the physical address of your store in the form of an IP address, and that's where they'll go in the browser. Your web hosting is actually the physical store. So think of the web hosting as the land that you're going to build your website on top of. So web hosting can be purchased from many different companies. GoDaddy is another great example. We strongly recommend Venture IP, as they're a great Australian company. And we really like SiteGround as well. SiteGround actually are probably one of my favorites because they use 100% renewable energy, and they are actually fantastic to deal with. So these guys can set up what's called a web hosting server, and you can run applications on their like your website with WordPress or Duplo or anything else that might be open source. And you can also run your emails through there. So when you're first starting out as a new business, oftentimes what we'll do is we'll find an affordable hosting plan for $10 a month, and we'll build a website on WordPress because WordPress is open source. So you're not paying $50 a month US like you would with Shopify, for example. And you're able to get a really cost-effective website on your own server, and you're in control. So think of it like leasing the land, and then WordPress is the actual building infrastructure. You're able to build out a physical store that people are able to come and visit and shop and talk to you online. Now you could also set up in those web hosting services, you could also set up your email accounts using the hosting environment. So a lot of hosts will actually set you up on a platform called cPanel. cPanel is, think of it like a control panel for your server. You can install software straight from cPanel, so things like WordPress. And WordPress is, again, it's the physical store that you have that you're building on top of the land, which is your web host. You can also set up your email accounts through there as well. So you have your domain, which is your address online, and that's pointing to your web hosting, and there'll be records in there like A records, CNAME records, there'll be MX records for your emails, and you have to set those up in your domain so that if they look up socialgeeks.io, it points to this web server and they can find your website. As well, if they send an email to kyle@socialgeeks.io, then it goes to my inbox, and that is pointing it in the right direction. So that hosting environment is important that you control. You can share that with developers, marketers, and so on so that they can set up your website for you. You should own your hosting account, and I can't emphasize this strongly enough. If you don't own your hosting account and your agency, your web developer, whoever hasn't given you access, it means that they are the ones who have control to accessing your store online, right? So they could come in at any time, and if they wanted to, they could just completely demolish your store. They could shut it down. They could stop people from being able to visit your store. They have complete control, all the keys to the kingdom. And without that access, you are powerless. You're not able to get into the land if they do not want you there. So you want to make sure that you have access to your domain, number one, and that you own it and you're sharing it to others using tools like Cloudflare. And number two, you want to make sure that you have control of your web hosting account, because you can always get into your website regardless of whatever happens in the future, as long as you have access to the land. WordPress is the software, or it's the building that you're able to build. But if you have access to the web hosting, it's almost like you can get through a back door, through a tunnel into the premise if somebody locks you out from the physical front door. WordPress is software where you can log into as an admin, you can set up pages, you add blog articles, you can add users, remove users, whatever. And people can get locked out of that as well. I definitely advocate, again, for having full admin access to your WordPress website, your Shopify website, your Squarespace website. Like, you should own that account. And then anybody else is added in as a developer or as a user in the account. If they're added as an admin, they do have the power to remove people, and that's where things can get a bit tricky. So I say that if you have access to your web hosting as the owner of the account, you can always recover your website. Without that level of access, if somebody kicks you out of your website, you are screwed. There's no going back, right? So you want to make sure that you control that. The last thing I'll cover off is your social media accounts. Now, Facebook, Google, TikTok, all these platforms are now getting better ways of being able to share access to other people, because most businesses, they rely on Facebook to speak to their customers, new prospects, all of that. So with Facebook, with Meta, there's what they call their Business Meta Suite. So it's essentially a place where businesses can set up a business account that has everything siloed for their business outside of their personal profile. So you can set up things like access to your Facebook page, your Instagram account, your Facebook ads account, your pixel, which is the tracking code on your website, and a whole bunch more in there. WhatsApp, for example, product catalogs, and a whole bunch of other things. The reason I'm highlighting this is that this is a common other thing that we see people getting locked out of. You should have ownership of that, and you should be adding people in as you need. So making sure that you've got full access of your Business Meta Suite account and that you are the admin, you can go into business.facebook.com and you can check who has access in the settings to this. You should have one person who's admin, and that should be you. And then you should also maybe look at who else has access and what level of access they have. So make sure as the business owner that you are the person who has admin access to your business manager account, because that is going to stop you from being kicked out in the future. The same goes for Google. So Google has an ecosystem of different tools, and one of the common things that we see happen whenever we take over an account for a new business client is that the client will have no access to any of these things. Google Analytics, Google Tag Manager, Google Ads, Google Search Console. There's a whole bunch of different tools. Google Merchant that they might not have access to. So those 5 different examples I've given you, those are 5 separate logins that you need to have for each of those different things. The good news is that you should have it all under your Google account. And a lot of people I find don't have their business email on there. They use a Gmail account, but you can set up a free Google account for your business so that you're able to log in across all of those to make sure that you have access. So again, with Google, you should make sure that you have administrator access to all of those accounts. So we're talking Google Analytics, which is the tool that people will install on your website to essentially track what people are doing on your website. Your Google Tag Manager, which is another tool that they use now for marketing and setting up all of your tracking codes. And that is something that you should have access to as the business owner and be an admin user on. Google Search Console. So that's telling you what are people searching on Google to find you and where are you ranking. So another handy tool that you should be admin of. And then lastly, your Google Merchant account, your Google Business Profile. There's a whole bunch in there that you should be the owner of. It's important that when you are running a business, that you have the keys to the kingdom for anything that somebody's setting up to you. I am a huge advocate. If you're a client of mine, you know exactly what I'm talking about because I've probably reiterated this 1,000 times to you. You should own your accounts, not somebody else. And so I'm a big advocate for making sure that all of my clients have admin access to the accounts that we're setting up for them and that they are the owner. Your web hosting, your domain name, your social media accounts, your Google accounts, all of that you should have ownership of. And we are in there as an employee or a partner in your business. If ever there was a situation where you wanted to move on to another agency, you should be able to do so without being ransomed or blackmailed by your previous agency to say, if you don't do this, then we're not going to give you access back. Or this is our IP and we're not going to share it. Google Ads is your account. There's no such thing as IP in a Google Ads account, in my opinion. Somebody's written some text, somebody's created some images and videos. It's not really their intellectual property. And if they're designing a really complex landing page and system in the background, and that's their system that they've set up. But again, if you're smart, you're going to get them to set it up on your website so that you own the IP and you own the website, the landing page, and all the systems, right? So that is a really key thing that I think separates Social Geeks Digital to other agencies, is the fact that we are a huge advocate for you owning your accounts and your software. Now I'm going to get off my high horse here and calm down a little bit. Whew, you can tell I'm getting worked up. But I just wanted to reiterate that and just share that with our audience, because I'm a really big advocate for the fact that you should have keys to the kingdom for anything that your business is reliant on. Your website, your domain, and your social media accounts, your Google accounts, everything should be controlled by you, and you should have full admin access to everything at all times. That way you can choose who has access to what. And if things ever sour in the future, I can't tell you how many businesses I've dealt with who have not had access to their Google Analytics, and then 10 years of data goes down the drain because some previous web developer has either stopped working in the industry or doesn't want to give them access, plays dumb and says they don't have this, and what are you talking about? And then they lose 10 years of data analytics on people coming to their website and purchase stuff, all the data that you really want to see as a business owner. If you're ever going to sell, you're ever going to run good marketing campaigns, you want to be able to access this information. So please, I implore you, if this is all sounding completely foreign to you, or you're worried about not having access to things, I'm going to put together a little checklist that I recommend that you go through and just check these things off on the list. We have an account onboarding checklist that I always give to clients to say, here's how you can share access, and they can run through it as well. I'm going to give you that completely free. You can download it at the bottom of this video, at the bottom of this episode, and it allows you to just make sure, just sanity check that you have all the keys to the kingdom. I think I've made my point very clear, so I'm going to stop there. Thank you so much for watching this episode. If you enjoyed it, please make sure that you give us a follow and subscribe on our YouTube channel. It means the world to have you guys along on the journey. I am really enjoying being able to talk about marketing and systems and AI and all the different things that I get to talk about. If there is anything that you guys would like me to talk about or analyze or give you further insights on, please do drop it in the comments. I would love to hear from you guys. And with all that said, all the best with your marketing. I'll see you in the next episode. Cheers, guys.